Joining me today, we have Alastair Still from GoldMining. Alastair, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me here today.
So something I've been asking a bunch of the people that I've been meeting at this conference, whether they're executives of mining companies or investors or sort of, I guess we say deal guys, analysts, is what's the buzz of the conference? So I'm sure you're having lots of conversations with your colleagues and just people you're meeting here. In your view, what are people talking about?
It's a great question, certainly something we get asked a lot about. I think the big theme that I'm hearing this year is how the sector in general, the gold sector, the gold equities are undervalued. And the reason I say that is we've all seen a substantial rise in the gold price. Earlier this year, it's closer to $2,000. We're now approaching $2,350 or higher at the time of this interview. We've seen the gold price rise. We have not seen a corresponding rise in the gold equities. And that's not just my company, that's companies in general. So I think a lot of people are seeing that as an opportunity. There's been a lag between the two, and at some point there'll be a correction. It will catch up.
What do you think is going to break us out of that? I guess in equity analysis, we call that the value trap, that sometimes you can find investments that have great value. They are deep value, but that doesn't mean that they're ever going to trade out of being that deep value. What do you think will break the gold equities out of value category that they're starting to look like?
Well, one of the things I think that needs to happen is that the operating companies, and these are the big major companies like the Barricks and the Newmonts and the Kinross's, Agnicos of the world, they need to start crushing some results. At these metal prices, the operators should be having substantial quarters, substantial earnings, and I think that's what's transpiring here. It takes a little while, a little momentum building, a little confidence building, but when the major operators can put out substantial results and earnings, that's a confidence for the industry in general that I think will lead to more inflow into the sector.
What's your read on the gold market right now? Do you think that rate cuts are already sort of priced in and there's people that are positioned for that? Or do you think that in the event that the Fed started to cut rates, we'd see money pour into gold and a bit of a price re-rate?
Yeah, well, you're asking a guy who's a gold bug, so full disclosure, and I don't make great predictions of what I think the actual value will be, but I think there's substantial runway for the gold price to go higher. I think any move by the Feds in terms of rate cuts is certainly going to be positive towards the long-term prospects for gold, but I think there's also many other fundamentals driving towards a higher price, not the least of which is a simple supply and demand situation. Many of the bigger companies are running low on reserves. The materials becoming more and more scarce, so that supply and demand will start having an important factor too. And that's why I think companies such as ours, we have projects that are in the pre-development stage. Those type of projects are becoming more and more scarce, more and more sought after by the major companies looking to fill empty development pipelines.
So you guys are in both gold and copper. What's the business model of GoldMining?
Well, the business model is quite simple. We were a project acquirer, and our chairman and our co-chairman founder, Amir Adnani, had spent more than 10 years acquiring projects, gold-focused projects, downturns, dips in the cycle, real value buys. We've now moved forward to a stage where we want to unlock value from that portfolio. We have primary exposure to gold, but also about 20% exposure is to copper, which occurs as a co-product with our deposits. My background itself was almost 25 years working for major operating and producing companies. So I know the value that needs to be derived from projects, know what it takes to move them. We've started drilling and unlocking values, and that's the gap for our shareholders. We have a very substantial balance sheet now with cash and equities. So the enterprise value that our substantial resource base is valued on, some 12.5 million gold equivalent ounces indicated and measured, plus almost 9.7 million ounces inferred. It's a very substantial resource base, not capturing a lot of value. That's really the opportunity for uptick and for our investors.
Okay, let me ask you about the Whistler project in Alaska. There's two very notable projects in Alaska that are huge projects that seemingly can't get to production. And we got the Pebble Road project, or the Pebble project, and the Ambler Road project. What can you tell me about the regulatory environment in Alaska? How challenging is it?
Well, first of all, just to clarify, the Whistler project is held by US GoldMining Inc., which we own 80% of. So we have a great exposure there. It's a large gold copper project, and Alaska, I think, is a very strong state for operating in. Mining is still the backbone of the economy. And you've listed two examples there which had specific issues to moving forward. One road on one of those projects, for example, was going through a national park that has its own set of challenges. One dealt with salmon habitat and fishery in a very sensitive part of the state. All that being said, Alaska is still a mining state. I can say that from all the jurisdictions I've worked in, our efforts so far for permitting and advancing on the exploration phase have been phenomenal. We had a program submitted for exploration, which included an open house for public consultation from start to finish. That took just over 3 months to get a 5-year exploration permit. That's unheard of in other jurisdictions. So it's very much open for business. The state has demonstrated that. They've welcomed us with open arms. The governor himself has been out to our project personally to spend a day to learn more about it and show its support. So I'm very encouraged by what we see so far in Alaska.
So you guys also have projects in Brazil. We've seen some successful public companies in Brazil over the last few years, companies that recently went public. What can you tell us about operating in Brazil?
Brazil is a great jurisdiction. I should point out it's the origin of our company. Our company was once called Brazil Resources. That's how we started things, and we had a name change to GoldMining Inc. So we know Brazil very well. Our president is based there, and we have a small operating team with some substantial projects, not the least of which is our San Jorge project. We've been drilling that over the last month. We've started to announce results. We're very encouraged there. One of the highlight drill results there was over 160 meters of core at a grade over 1 gram per ton gold equivalent. And that's just been announced. So that's building on an existing resource in an area that's we're less than 3 kilometers from pavement, so great infrastructure. There's a power line crossing the property with 138 kV power line. So good infrastructure in a good jurisdiction with a good workforce. And that's backed up by our near neighbors, GMining, who have recently put into production, actually this week, they announced their first gold pour at Tocantinzinho, and that's just up the road from us. So that's helping really put a lot of eyes and attention onto the district. We have a large land package there, good exploration potential, and we're sure backing that up with a small drill program right now, increasing confidence and identifying new targets as well.
So what's the long run plan for gold mining? If I were to say to you, we catch a good gold market, raising money is not a problem, where would you like to see the company in 10 years?
Well, in 10 years, I think we'll continue this path of unlocking value from the portfolio. We have a substantial equity and cash position now that will grow as we bring in new partners to advance our projects, and as we look to acquire additional projects. Right now, with 7 projects on our resource statement, each of them having more than 1 million gold equivalent ounces. There are substantial projects in there. Those are attracting attention from other companies. So as partners come in, create value, unlock value, put on our balance sheet, and continue to grow and put returns for our shareholders.
Well, Alistair, thanks very much for joining us today. I think you guys have a pretty substantial amount of gold in the ground, and it's a very interesting company for anybody who's doing their due diligence on gold names to definitely take a look at. And we really appreciate your time.
Pleasure being here. Thanks for having me on today.